so happy we alive.
Good evening, and welcome to Louisville Late Night, San Francisco, California.
Now let's look a second at what's the fundamental characteristics of life, how that stuff turns into living things and what it brings with it. So one of the key things here is the concept of homeostasis. In medicine and biology, this term is applied to the inherent tendency in an organism towards maintenance of physiological and psychological stability. Well, illness is when you're out of balance, you know? No matter what illness you're talking about, it's something that's out of balance. The flow is not occurring in a sufficiently nutritive manner to maintain the organism's distance from equilibrium, and it gets more disordered and approaches equilibrium. That's also, by the way, what aging is. We'll go into that in a minute. So, living systems are composed of many thousands of interacting biochemical thermostats. And what I mean here is not that they're regulating heat, but they're regulating this flow that I keep talking about. And they're everywhere, and they're on all levels. They're within your cells, they're between your cells, they're in your organs, between your organs. It's how all of these layers of communication coordinate so that we can sit here and talk about this stuff. All right? This is just a chart showing you that in many cases, the way our cells work, when you look at the chemicals within our cells, we see that they have these oscillatory properties. And some of them are oscillating in phase with each other, and others are oscillating out of phase. And without going into the details, on the right there are simply abbreviations for the names of chemicals that are showing this phenomenon. And it so happens that those are chemicals involved in the fundamental aspects of our metabolism. In other words, how we generate energy to be alive. So these oscillations are right there happening within our cells. All right. So what is life and what is aging? All living systems are in fact bioelectric, as I've been saying. The electricity is flowing. The electrons are going from our foods to our wastes. All right? Electrons flow from where they don't want to be to where they want to be. The biochemical reactions that constitute life are the wires. It's how these electrons flow from where they're charged to where they're discharged. All right? Those are the wires. It's our chemistry. It's our unique biochemistry. And even though we're all the same, we're all different. And when electrons flow, some of them leak out. And some of them form what we call free radicals. And many of us are free radicals, but I don't mean that kind. I mean the kind that occur within your biochemistry. And what do? Well, on the one hand, they perturb the chemistry. All right? What they wind up doing is interacting with your DNA, your RNA, your fats, and your proteins, and they alter their chemistry. Most obviously, when you alter the chemistry of your DNA, you're creating mutations. And since these free radicals are occurring because we are alive, the longer you're alive, the more you accumulate this damage. It's kind of like biochemical rust or biochemical friction. Okay? It's an increase in disorder. Entropy is slowly increasing with us as we try to stay away from going back to equilibrium, which is death. So, on the one hand, we see free radicals as being very negative because they are in fact believed to be responsible for all age-related diseases and in fact aging. On the other hand, they are signaling molecules that tell us how efficiently we are interacting with our environment. Because remember, we've got to be sucking in from our environment to maintain ourselves, all right? And as soon as there are little changes, we've got to be able to adapt so that we're in harmony again, right? And part of the ability to do that is because when we screw things up a little bit by not interacting appropriately, then we make free radicals, and some of our cellular systems are designed to detect that and to try and change us biochemically so we better interact with the environment so we can keep sucking out what we need, all right? So, there's a good and bad side to them. Changes allowing for altered biochemistry, they allow for changes to reestablish smooth flow of essentially those electrons and to minimize negative free radical consequences. Well, it turns out that cannabinoids have a very fundamental role in this process because they wind up regulating homeostasis, these balancing acts, these thermostats that I keep talking about. And they do it everywhere. This is so amazing. They do it everywhere. They are so integrated into man's life, and not only man's life, but really life through multiple layers of evolution. The cannabinoid system was first, the origins of it can be traced back 600 million years ago. That's when cells first started to communicate and cooperate with other cells. That's prior to the development of digestive systems and nervous systems and all of that. Just simple communication and effective collaborative interaction so that they can survive better. All right? So we see now that the cannabinoids are in the cardiovascular system where they protect your heart, as was discussed. They lower your blood pressure in many circumstances. They reverse arterial sclerosis. This is the latest data coming out of mice again. But there's molecular mechanisms to all of this. I don't have time to explain it all, but there's a foundation, to all of the things that I'm talking about, a coherent foundation having to do essentially with free radical production. All right? Cardiovascular disease really in many respects is an autoimmune disease because it's your immune system through inflammation that's screwing things up, and the cannabinoids have a fundamental role in modulating that and turning off that aspect. Remember, balancing act. We make inflammation, we turn it off. That's occurring throughout us, and the cannabinoids are very anti-inflammatory in that respect. So in our digestive system, we see the cannabinoids involved with things like gastrointestinal reflux disease, ulcers, nausea. Not simply masking symptoms. We're talking about changing the fundamental biochemistry that leads to these illnesses. In the endocrine system, the pituitary hormones are regulated, some of them, not all of them, by cannabinoids. But remember, this is the master gland. So we're talking about that which is mastering the master here, all right? Our cannabinoids. Things like prolactin, which is involved not only in lactation and the production and promoting certain breast cancers from growing, but also mood activities, etc. Ghrelin is one of these gut hormones involved in our appetite and digestion. They regulate our excretory system, things like diarrhea. They used to be used as a treatment for cholera. Urinary frequency. If you watch TV, you see, as was mentioned earlier, nothing but drug advertisements. And in one case, they're talking about, this pill is going to help you with your incontinence. And if you actually go and look at the data, you'll have 1/10 less of a piss a night. Hey, this is a big thing, but it passed clinical trials. It's something we should invest our money in. 1/10 less of a piss. Cannabis has recently been shown to have, I think it's a 40% reduction in urination in multiple sclerosis patients. It really is a big relief. For many other reasons with MS patients, but this is just another one because, once again, we're looking at a whole, your body and your body's activity being graded in all of those little parts, and here we're having this one collection of molecules, these cannabinoids, touching so many places to allow for higher levels of coordination, and what's the outcome? Among others, whether we're happy or not. Happiness, you're not going to be happy if you're falling apart usually. We deal better if we have a mindset that allows us to. And the cannabinoids are helping us with all that. So they modulate our immune system. Our immune system in general, in a very simplistic sense, is a balance of two opposing forces, pro-inflammatory, anti-inflammatory, and we need both arms. But we need them at different times. 100 years ago, people were dying in this country. 100 years ago, people were dying at a younger age, and they were dying from infectious diseases for the most part. Well, now we're not, in general, dying from infectious diseases. We're dying from age-related diseases, arterial sclerosis, multiple sclerosis, autoimmune diseases like diabetes, etc., Alzheimer's disease. All of these diseases are believed to have as their foundation, as their etiological agent, free radicals, which we know cannabinoids help protect against. So things like arthritis, ALS, diabetes, multiple sclerosis, Crohn's disease, these are all autoimmune diseases that are involving the pro-inflammatory imbalance. That's the imbalance that cannabinoids would be good for because of their anti-inflammatory nature. If you were imbalanced on the other side, cannabinoids would be bad for you. And there are certain circumstances where cannabinoids are very bad for you. Certain infections, things like Legionilla's disease, leprosy, leishmania, I'm skipping one here, one important one. Tuberculosis, thank you. So diseases that require a strong inflammatory immune response, you should stay away from cannabis. It could kill you. And there are animal studies that have shown where you, for example, give THC to mice that are infected with leishmania. The mice that get the THC all die because of the explosion of the inflammation, of the infection.